All right, and joining us now, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. Secretary General, thank you so much for being with us. Overnight, we saw the Russians take control of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. It was set on fire in an attack overnight. We've never seen anything like that ever, a nuclear power plant under attack. The U.S. Embassy in Kyiv calls it a war crime. It's a clear escalation in the Russian behavior. Does that necessitate an escalation in the NATO response?
What we saw last night was a reckless action of war in and around a nuclear power plant, and this just demonstrates the danger of this war, and it underlines the importance of Putin ending this war, withdrawing all his forces, and engaging in genuine efforts to find a political diplomatic solution. What we have seen is that Russia is shelling residential areas, it's killing civilians, and now also the dangers related to a nuclear power plant.
We saw the video. We saw the video just this morning released by the Ukrainian foreign minister of a residential apartment complex, and I think we can show it to you right now. It's in Borodyanko. This is an area not far from Kyiv. I think we have the video of that apartment complex being bombed there. Well, people have seen it, nevertheless. Clearly, civilians are being killed here. Does that seem to you, does it seem to you that Vladimir Putin is being deterred in any way?
This is President Putin's war. He planned it, and he is now waging the war against innocent people in Ukraine, blatantly violating international law. We warned him that if he once again invaded Ukraine, we would impose the most severe sanctions the world ever have seen. And that's exactly what we are doing. So we're imposing those costs. Allies are also stepping up their support to Ukraine, military support, humanitarian support, financial support, and we rally the whole world. We saw that in the UN to condemn and call on Russia to stop the war, to withdraw troops and engage in diplomatic efforts.
You said no NATO troops. You said no NATO planes in Ukrainian airspace. When you see residential apartment complexes like that ablaze or in rubble, as a human being, is there any sense of remorse that you can't do more?
What we see is heinous. It's a brutality. It's killing of civilians we haven't seen since the Second World War in Europe. And I think also the courage of the Ukrainian armed forces, the Ukrainian people, they really inspire the whole world to step up, and therefore NATO allies are providing more support, military support, but also humanitarian, including calling on talks to provide humanitarian corridors. But we also have a responsibility to make sure that this conflict doesn't spiral out of control and goes beyond Ukraine and end up as a full-fledged war in Europe involving many more countries, Europe, Russia against NATO. That will cause even more suffering, even more death, even more civilian killed. So therefore, we provide support. We are stepping up the support, but we also made it clear that we are not part of the conflict. We are a defensive alliance, and we will not move NATO troops or NATO air forces into Ukraine.
Are you seeing any sign? You talk about NATO members here. Obviously, the Baltic states could be seen as an area of specific concern. Do you have any reason to believe they're under greater threat this morning?
We have significantly increased the military presence of NATO forces in the eastern part of the alliance to make sure that there is no room for miscalculation or misunderstanding in Moscow about NATO's readiness to protect and defend all allies. And as long as we stand together, one for all for one, then all allies are safe, because we are the strongest alliance in history, 50% of the world's military might, and our commitment to our security guarantees, Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, is ironclad, and we demonstrate that by having more US troops, but also more European troops, Canadian troops, in the eastern part of the alliance. So that's to prevent any attack against any NATO ally country.
I understand. You say all allies are safe, but if a man who's willing to invade this entire country and attack a nuclear power plant there overnight, how do you know that they're all safe? What would stop him if he's willing to fire on a nuclear power plant? Wouldn't he theoretically be willing to maybe fire on a NATO nation?
We have to minimize that risk, and that's exactly why we are doing what we are doing for more than 70 years. Also during the most difficult times during the Cold War, NATO was able to preserve peace, prevent an attack. And the main purpose of NATO is to preserve peace by sending a very clear message of deterrence to any potential adversary. And that's exactly what we do also to President Putin, to Moscow today. And if anything, this crisis demonstrates the importance of North America, Europe standing together. We see more US forces in Europe, but we see also the European allies and Canada are stepping up. Germany just announced 2% defense spending, 2% of GDP, 100 billion extra for defense, and Germany has doubled their presence, for instance, in Lithuania. I think this is a very convincing, a very strong message to Moscow about the commitment of all NATO allies to protect and defend each other. And this worked during the Cold War, and we have to make sure it works also today.
Yeah, one of the ironies is NATO has never been more unified, it seems, than it is now. Vladimir Putin is getting the opposite of what he might have wanted. Antony Blinken just did a NATO meeting in Brussels. What's next for NATO, Secretary General?
Well, we will monitor the situation very closely. Allies are stepping up support for Ukraine, and we are increasing the presence in eastern part of the alliance. And then, of course, we will continue to call on Russia to engage in diplomatic efforts to find a political solution to this conflict. And on the 16th of March, NATO defense ministers will meet, and they will have a discussion about the long-term consequences. What does this mean for NATO in the long term, both when it comes to our relationship, with Russia, but also long-term adjustments to our presence, posture, military posture, especially in the eastern part of the alliance.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, I know this is a very busy time for you. I appreciate you taking the chance to speak with us very much, sir.